The dead man who sent me a love letter. The love letter arrived on my doorstep on the morning of February 14th, tucked inside a crisp white envelope. My name was handwritten in the same elegant cursive I used to admire, each stroke so familiar, so precise. My stomach twisted as I turned it over, tracing my fingers over the red wax seal pressed into the flap. It had been a year since Evan died. My fingers trembled as I peeled the envelope open. A faint scent of his cologne drifted out, the one he used to wear on our dates. The note inside was written in his handwriting, unmistakable. "Miss me? I can't wait to see you again tonight." My breath hitched. I felt my pulse pounding in my ears. My hands turned ice cold. I stared at the ink, fresh and dark, running my fingers over the paper, as if touching it would prove it wasn't real. It had to be someone's sick joke. I slammed the letter down and grabbed my phone, scrolling through my contacts. I dialed Mia, my best friend, the only person who would understand. She picked up on the third ring. "Hey, what's up?" I swallowed hard. "Someone left me a letter. From Evan." Silence. Then she sighed. "Look, I know today is hard for you, but you have to let him go." "I'm serious, Mia. It's in his handwriting. It even smells like him." My voice cracked. "This isn't just in my head." She hesitated. Maybe someone found one of his old letters and left it as a prank. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. He never wrote me letters like this, and the ink is fresh. It's new. Mia exhaled sharply. "Do you want me to come over?" I nodded before realizing she couldn't see that either. "Yeah, please." I spent the next hour pacing my apartment, clutching the letter. My mind ran in circles, cycling through every possibility. Maybe his parents had found some of his old things and decided to send it, but why now, and why anonymously? By the time Mia arrived, I was shaking. She took the letter from my hands, examining it closely. "Okay, this is weird," she admitted, running a finger over the words. "It's his handwriting, I swear." "See?" I whispered. She sat down, chewing her lip. "Have you talked to his mom lately?" "No, not in months." Mia set the letter down carefully. "What if you call her, just to see if they found anything of his?" I hesitated. The thought of hearing Mrs. Callahan's voice, his mother's grief-stricken voice, made my stomach churn. But if there was even a chance this letter had an explanation, I needed to know. I pulled up her number and called. The phone rang twice before she answered. "Hello?" My voice wavered. "Hi, Mrs. Callahan. It's Anna." A pause. Then warmly, "Oh, sweetheart. It's been so long." I took a shaky breath. "I know. I had a weird question." "Of course, dear." I hesitated before diving in. "Did you or Mr. Callahan find any old letters from Evan? Maybe things he wrote before he—" I swallowed. "Before he passed?" Silence stretched between us. Then she spoke softly, her voice thick with emotion. "No, honey. We haven't touched his things since the funeral." A cold chill crept up my spine. She paused. "Why do you ask?" I forced a weak chuckle. "Just something reminded me of him today. Never mind, thank you." I hung up before she could press further. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Mia watched me carefully. "So?" I turned to her slowly. "They didn't send it." A long silence filled the room, then Mia, always the logical one, rubbed her arms. "Okay, maybe someone copied his handwriting." I shook my head. No one else knew the way he wrote my name like this. Mia frowned but didn't argue. We sat there for a while, both lost in thought, the apartment suddenly feeling colder. Then, around 8 p.m., my doorbell rang. My breath caught in my throat. Mia and I exchanged looks. My stomach twisted. "I swear, if someone is playing a prank on me, I'm going to kill them," I muttered, trying to sound braver than I felt. I slowly made my way to the door. My hand hovered over the knob. Then, heart-hammering, I swung it open. There was no one there, only another letter. This one was sealed with fresh wax, still warm to the touch. My hands were trembling as I picked it up. I opened it with shaking fingers. I'm outside. My blood turned to ice. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the paper. Mia grabbed my arm. "What does it say?" I handed it to her. Her eyes widened. She grabbed her phone, stepping back from the door. "I'm calling the police." I froze. Because beyond her, through the apartment window, past the frost-streaked glass, there was someone standing in the snow, a dark figure, motionless, watching, and even in the dim light I could see it, the familiar red hoodie Evan always wore. My breath hitched, my vision blurred. It wasn't possible. Mia turned, following my gaze. Then she let out a horrified gasp. I scrambled back, gripping the edge of the couch. No, this isn't real." The figure tilted its head as if listening. Then slowly, it took a step forward. Mia grabbed me. "We have to go. Now." The doorknob rattled. A breathless whisper drifted through the crack beneath the door. "Anna, let me in." Tears burned in my eyes, that voice. It sounded just like him. Mia was pulling me back, dragging me toward the hallway. "Anna, move." The lights flickered. The apartment plunged into darkness. I felt the cold air rush in as the front door burst open, and then silence. When I woke up, I was on the floor. My head ached. The room was empty. The door was shut. Mia was gone. The only thing left was a final letter, resting on my chest. It was smeared with red fingerprints. I turned it over with numb fingers. "Happy Valentine's Day, my love. I finally found my way back to you." The ink was still wet. The door was never locked, and I was no longer alone. Story number 2. The couple who didn't know they were dead. The first time I noticed something was wrong, it was the snow. It never stopped falling. It had been days, or weeks maybe, and yet the snow outside our cabin never melted, never piled higher, never changed. Just a constant delicate drift of white flakes falling in slow motion, as if trapped in time. Jake and I had booked this secluded cabin for a Valentine's Day getaway. A quiet escape, just the two of us, deep in the mountains, far from the city's noise. The kind of place where the silence wrapped around you so thick it felt like you could sink into it. But by the third day I started feeling off. The air was too still, the cold never seemed to bite, and the cabin, something about it felt unfamiliar even though we'd been here for days. That night I woke up to the sound of knocking, slow, rhythmic, hollow. Jake stirred beside me, groggy. "What's that?" I turned to him, my pulse hammering. "I don't know." The knocking came again, louder this time. We climbed out of bed, our breath fogging in the air. It was freezing inside, even though we'd left the fireplace burning. I reached the door and hesitated. Something about this felt wrong. I pressed my ear against the wood. Silence. I swallowed hard and slowly unlatched the lock, pulling the door open an inch. Snow, wind, nothing else. I exhaled, relieved and uneasy at the same time, but as I turned to shut the door, my breath caught. Footprints, a trail of them in the snow, leading to the cabin. Deep, fresh, but there were none leading away. I slammed the door shut. Someone was here. Jake frowned. "No one's out there." "No, I mean, the footprints. They only lead toward the cabin." My voice shook. "Whoever knocked, they never walked away." We barely slept that night. I kept staring at the door, expecting it to knock again. But morning came and the footprints were gone, as if they had never been there at all. By the next evening, I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. The air inside the cabin was too still, too heavy, pressing against my skin like an unseen weight. Even Jake seemed distant, paler, quieter. His eyes had deep shadows beneath them, and when he spoke, his voice sounded hollow, like it echoed in an empty space. And then on the fourth day the old man came. It was near dusk when he appeared, a hunched figure in a heavy coat, standing at the edge of the clearing. I watched him from the window, my stomach twisting. "We should invite him in," Jake murmured. I turned to him, horrified. "Are you insane? We don't know who he is." But Jake was already moving toward the door. The old man didn't knock. He didn't move at all. He just stood there, staring. His face was shadowed beneath the hood of his coat, but his presence alone sent a wave of cold terror through me. Jake opened the door just enough to call out, "Hey, sir, are you lost?" The old man tilted his head, as if listening to something we couldn't hear. Then in a hoarse whisper he said, "You need to leave." Jake frowned. "What?" The man stepped closer. His face, now visible, was lined and weathered, his eyes dark hollows. His expression was grim, almost pitying. "You don't belong here," he rasped. "This cabin, it's not for the living." A chill ran down my spine. My body screamed at me to slam the door, to lock it, to run. But something deep inside me, something I didn't want to acknowledge, already knew what he meant. I gripped Jake's arm. "Shut the door." Jake hesitated, looking between me and the old man. "Sir, I think you might be confused." The old man's gaze darkened. "Number. You're the ones who are confused." A gust of wind howled through the clearing, and for a split second the cabin groaned, as if the very walls were breathing. The air thickened, heavy with something unseen, something watching. And then the old man took another step forward. "Look down." I glanced at the snow-covered ground. My vision blurred. My stomach dropped. There were no footprints where we stood. Jake and I were barefoot, standing in the snow, but there was no imprint beneath us, no mark, no disturbance in the perfect untouched white. Jake's breath hitched. I tore my gaze away, heart pounding, and slammed the door shut. "We're leaving," I whispered. Jake's face was pale. "This is crazy, this is—" I grabbed his arm. "We have to leave, now." We rushed to pack our things, throwing clothes into bags with trembling hands. My mind raced. How could we not have noticed? Why hadn't we left footprints? And then I saw the photos. Jake had left his camera on the counter, the screen still lit from the last picture taken. My hand shook as I lifted it. It was a selfie of us, but behind us in the reflection of the cabin's window, there was nothing. No figures, no bodies, just the empty living room. Jake grabbed the camera, eyes wide. His hands trembled as he flipped to another picture, one from 2 nights ago, sitting by the fire, smiling. But the couch was empty. Another photo, us at the dinner table, plates full of food, no one in the chairs. The world tilted, my breath came in short gasps. "No," Jake whispered, no, this isn't." Then the lights flickered. The cabin groaned, and the door unlocked itself. Slowly, it creaked open. Outside, the snow swirled. The old man was gone. But something else stood in his place, a figure tall, shadowed, waiting. I reached for Jake's hand, but my fingers passed through his, like mist, like air, like nothing at all. Jake turned to me, horror in his eyes. "Anna." His voice faded. The room faded. The walls of the cabin peeled away like smoke. And then I remembered. The drive up the mountain, the snowfall thickening, the curve we took too fast, the way the ice made the tires slip, the way the car tumbled, metal crunching, bones breaking, blood seeping into the snow. Jake let out a strangled breath. Oh my God. The truth crashed over me like a wave. We had never made it to the cabin. We had died on the way. And now something else was waiting to take us away. The wind roared. The shadow stepped forward. Jake reached for me, but his touch dissolved. The last thing I heard was my own scream, swallowed by the storm. And then, nothing. Story number 3. The Hearts in the Snow. The first heart appeared in the snow on February 10th. I remember the exact moment I saw it. Right outside my cabin window, perfectly shaped, as if someone had carved it carefully into the fresh white powder. At first I thought it was sweet, maybe a romantic gesture from someone in the nearby town. But as I stood there staring at it, a strange feeling crawled up my spine. The heart wasn't drawn with a stick or traced with fingers. The edges were too sharp, too precise, too deep, as if something had pressed down into the snow from the inside out. I ignored it at first, brushed it off as some prank. But the next morning there were 2, both identical, both perfectly symmetrical. One closer to the cabin. I didn't touch them. Something about them made my stomach twist, made the air feel heavier. I told myself it was just my imagination, that someone was playing a joke on me. But my cabin was isolated deep in the woods. There were no neighbors for miles, and the nearest road was buried under thick layers of snow. No one should have been able to get here without me noticing. By the third morning, there were 3 hearts, and this time the snow inside them wasn't white. It was red. I stepped outside, my breath curling in the freezing air, my boots crunching in the snow. As I got closer, my heart pounded in my chest. The red wasn't paint. It wasn't dye. It seeped from the snow itself, pooling in tiny rivulets along the edges of the carved shape. I knelt down, hesitating, before dipping my fingers into the damp center of the heart. Warm. My breath caught in my throat. I stumbled back, wiping my hand on my coat, my pulse hammering. It wasn't possible. It didn't make sense. I forced myself to take deep breaths, to think logically. Maybe an animal had died under the snow. Maybe the melting ice had carried some kind of runoff. But as I looked around, there were no tracks. Nothing. Just the silent, untouched landscape. I locked the cabin door that night, pulled the curtains closed, stoked the fire until the warmth filled every corner. I told myself I was being paranoid, that the isolation was getting to me, but sleep didn't come easy. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined something standing outside, watching. By the 4th morning, there were 4 hearts, and something had scratched at my door. The wood was scored with deep, jagged lines. The doorknob was ice-cold, colder than it should have been, even in this weather. My stomach lurched as I looked down. Right outside my doorstep, carved perfectly into the snow, was another heart. This one was still bleeding. I didn't go outside that day. I stayed inside with every light on, clutching a fire poker in my hands, watching the windows. Every so often, I thought I saw movement, a flicker of shadow between the trees, a pale shape shifting against the snow. My mind played tricks on me, whispering thoughts I didn't want to consider. Who was leaving them? Why were they getting closer? That night, I heard the breathing. I was lying in bed, wrapped in layers of blankets, trying to focus on the crackling of the fire. The wind howled outside, rattling the glass panes, and then, beneath it, soft, rhythmic, too close, came the sound of breathing, slow, deep, just beyond my window. I squeezed my eyes shut, gripping the covers, willing it to stop, but the breathing continued, steady, deliberate, waiting. I don't know how I fell asleep, but when I woke up, the cabin was deathly silent. The fire had burned low, the air was too cold, and when I looked outside, there were 5 hearts. The one closest to the cabin was different. The snow inside wasn't just stained red, it was ripped open, torn apart like something had clawed its way up from beneath. My stomach lurched. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking as I tried to call for help. No signal. The storm had knocked it out days ago. My radio was dead. The only road out of here was buried under feet of snow. I was trapped. That night I didn't sleep. I sat by the fireplace, gripping the poker, listening, waiting. The breathing returned around midnight, but this time it wasn't outside. It was in the hallway. My entire body went rigid. I didn't turn my head. I didn't move. I could feel it. Something standing just beyond my vision, just past the doorway. I don't know how long I sat there frozen. Minutes. Hours. Then the breathing stopped, and the whispering began, a soft, wet voice crawling through the darkness. "You're almost ready." I ran. I don't remember grabbing my coat, don't remember shoving my feet into boots. I bolted for the door, my fingers fumbling with the lock. The moment it swung open, the freezing wind nearly knocked me back. Snow blinded my vision, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I didn't stop running. The trees loomed around me, shadows stretching unnaturally long. The wind howled, but beneath it I could still hear them. Whispers, footsteps, the sound of something dragging itself through the snow. I ran until my lungs burned, until my legs threatened to give out.
And then finally I saw it, the highway, a car, headlights cutting through the blizzard. I stumbled into the road, waving my arms, screaming for help. The car skidded to a stop, the driver jumping out, rushing toward me. A man in a heavy coat, his face tight with worry. "Jesus, are you okay? What the hell are you doing out here?" I turned, looking back. The trees stood silent. No footprints, no figures, no hearts. The man led me into his car, cranking up the heat. I shivered violently, unable to stop shaking. My lips felt numb. My skin burned with cold. As he pulled back onto the road, he glanced at me, frowning. "You're lucky, you know. There've been stories about that place for years." My stomach clenched. "What stories?" He hesitated. Then, in a quiet voice, he said, "They say if you stay too long, the snow marks you." My pulse pounded. "Marks you for what?" He didn't.
Story number 4. My girlfriend isn't my girlfriend anymore. The first time I noticed something was wrong with Emily, it was a small thing, a flicker of something in her eyes that I couldn't quite place. We had been snowed in for 3 days, trapped in our cabin, the roads too dangerous to leave. At first it was cozy, just the two of us, curled up by the fire, drinking wine, playing old records. But by the third night, something about her felt off. She had always been soft-spoken, but now she was too quiet, her movements slow and deliberate, as if she was listening to something I couldn't hear. Her eyes lingered on me for too long, unblinking, like she was studying me. And then, at exactly 3:12 a.m., I woke up to find her standing over me. She didn't move, didn't speak, just stared. Her head was tilted at an unnatural angle, her lips curled into a small, strained smile. The fire had burned down to embers, casting flickering shadows across her face. My mouth went dry. "Emily?" I whispered. She blinked, slowly. Then, without answering, she turned and walked to the window. The movement was stiff, mechanical. She pressed her hand against the frozen glass and let out a slow breath, fogging it up. "You should go back to sleep," she said. Her voice was wrong. It sounded like her, but there was something underneath it. An echo, a distortion, like two voices layered over each other. A chill crawled down my spine. I lay there for a long time, pretending to fall back asleep, but my heart wouldn't stop pounding. I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know how bad it was going to get. The next day she barely spoke, just sat at the table staring at her hands. Her nails were dirty, the skin underneath them dark. I asked her if she was okay, but she only smiled. At noon I found her standing in the snow, barefoot. The door had been left wide open, freezing air curling inside. I rushed out, grabbing her by the arm. Her skin was like ice. "Emily, what the hell are you doing?" She turned to me, her eyes wide, blank. And then she said something that made my stomach twist into knots. "I was listening." I swallowed. "Listening to what?" She smiled. "The voices in the snow." My fingers tightened around her wrist. "Come inside, now." That night I locked the door. I bolted the windows. The wind outside howled, but inside the silence felt heavier. I told myself I was imagining things, that the isolation was getting to me, but deep down I knew. That wasn't Emily anymore. At 3:12 a.m. I woke up to her whispering. At first I thought she was talking in her sleep, but when I turned my head, I saw her sitting upright in bed, staring at the darkened corner of the room. Her lips moved, but the words were soft, rapid, unintelligible. I reached out, touching her shoulder. She stiffened. "Emily?" She turned her head, too fast, too sudden, and then she smiled. My stomach dropped. It was the wrong kind of smile. Too wide, too stretched, the corners of her lips pulling too far. The skin around her mouth cracked as she held it, the firelight casting shadows across her face. I scrambled back. "What's wrong with you?" She didn't answer. I reached for my phone, but it was dead. The power had gone out hours ago, and the storm had knocked out all signal. I was alone with her. I got out of bed, moving toward the door, my pulse hammering. I didn't even know where I was going. Maybe to the car, maybe just away from her. That's when she spoke. "You don't recognize me, do you?" My breath caught. "What?" She cocked her head, her eyes gleaming. "You think I'm her." I gripped the door handle. "What the hell are you talking about?" She let out a low chuckle, but there was no warmth in it. She reached up, pressing her fingers into her cheeks, almost like she was adjusting something. And then, slowly, she said, "She's been gone since the first night." My stomach turned to ice. I shook my head. No, that's not." She stepped closer. "Do you remember when she woke up standing over you?" Her voice was softer now, almost playful. "That wasn't her. That was me." A scream clawed up my throat, but I couldn't move. I had to practice, you see. Her skin was so tight at first. The way she moved, the way she spoke, I had to get it just right. I stumbled back, crashing into the dresser. My legs felt weak, my vision swimming. The thing that wore Emily's face took another step forward. "I think I did well, don't you?" I ran. I don't remember throwing the door open. I don't remember barreling through the snow, my breath coming in ragged gasps. All I remember is the wind howling around me, the cold slashing at my skin, the fear tightening in my chest. I reached the car, fumbling with the keys, but my hands were shaking too much. And then I heard footsteps behind me, slow, steady, not rushing. I turned my head, heart hammering. Emily, or whatever had taken her place, stood just a few feet away. Her lips parted, the skin splitting at the corners. She was still smiling. "You can't leave," she whispered. I got the door open just as she lunged. The engine roared to life. I slammed my foot on the gas, the tires skidding against the ice. In the rearview mirror, I saw her standing in the snow, watching. The smile never left her face. By the time I made it back to town, I was shaking so hard I could barely speak. The police didn't believe me. They checked the cabin, of course, but found no signs of Emily, no footprints, no blood, nothing. It was like she had never been there at all. It's been a year now. I moved to another city, far away from that place. But I still dream about her, about the thing that wore her face, about the way she smiled, and last night I woke up at exactly 3:12 a.m. There was a whisper in my room. Software familiar. "I finally found you." Story number 5. There's someone under the ice. The first time I saw the face under the ice, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. The sun was setting over the frozen lake, casting a deep orange glow across the untouched snow. The world was silent, the only sound the soft crunch of my skates against the ice. I was alone out there, gliding across the surface, enjoying the eerie stillness of winter. But then I saw it. A pair of eyes staring up at me from beneath the ice. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. The face was just below my feet, barely distorted by the thick layer of ice. A pale face, eyes wide open, lips slightly parted as if caught mid-scream. My stomach twisted. My first thought was that someone had drowned, that a body had been trapped beneath the surface. But that was impossible. The ice was at least 6 inches thick, solid enough to hold a truck. No one could be under there. I stepped back, my skates scraping against the surface. The face didn't move. It just stared. My heart hammered as I knelt down for a closer look. My breath fogged up the ice, and for a moment, the face disappeared behind the mist. But when it cleared, the eyes were still there, locked onto mine. And then, it blinked. I shot to my feet, nearly losing my balance. My body screamed at me to run, to get the hell off the ice, but I couldn't move. My legs felt locked in place, my breath short and ragged. Then I heard it. A faint, rhythmic tapping. It was coming from beneath the ice. I turned and skated as fast as I could. The cold air stung my face, my chest burned with each breath, but I didn't stop until I reached the edge of the lake. My boots crunched against the snow as I collapsed onto the shore, gasping. When I looked back, the face was gone. That night I barely slept. My mind kept replaying the moment over and over, the way the eyes had blinked, the way the tapping had sounded so deliberate, so patient. By morning I'd convinced myself that it had been a trick of the light, maybe a shadow beneath the ice, some kind of optical illusion. It was the only explanation that made sense. But when I went back to the lake the next day, There was something waiting for me. A hole in the ice, perfectly round, as if something had crawled its way out. The edges were smooth, not jagged like someone had fallen through. No cracks, no signs of struggle. Just an open, dark abyss leading straight into the frozen depths. I swallowed hard, my breath forming quick puffs in the air. My gut twisted with something primal, something screaming at me to leave. But I couldn't. I needed to know. I took a cautious step onto the ice, my heartbeat thudding in my ears. The hole was about 15 feet from shore. As I got closer, I saw that the ice around it was wet, slick, as if something had been dripping onto the surface. That's when I saw them, footprints leading away from the hole, bare footprints. The shape was unmistakable, long, thin, human. The prints trailed off toward the woods, disappearing into the snow. I felt my stomach drop. There was no way. No way anyone could have survived in that water in those temperatures. No one could have walked away. A sharp gust of wind howled through the trees, making me flinch. I turned, half expecting to see someone standing at the tree line watching me. But the forest was empty. I ran back to my car, my mind racing. Someone had been in the ice. Someone had gotten out. And now they were walking around. That night I locked my doors, pulled the curtains closed. I tried to tell myself that it was some kind of mistake, some kind of logical explanation I just hadn't figured out yet. But at exactly 3:12 a.m., I woke up to the sound of dripping water. I lay there, frozen, my breath shallow. The sound wasn't coming from the bathroom. It wasn't coming from the kitchen. It was coming from inside my room. My fingers dug into the sheets. The air was cold, too cold. My breath curled in front of my face, thick and white, as if I were standing outside. I turned my head slowly, my pulse thundering. And then, in the dim glow of the streetlight filtering through the curtains, I saw them. Wet footprints, leading from my window to the foot of my bed. I sucked in a sharp breath, my throat tightening. My body screamed at me to move, to run, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed. Then the mattress shifted. Something was crawling onto the bed. A faint, wet breath brushed against my ear. "You saw me." I bolted upright, gasping. My hands fumbled for the lamp, knocking it over in my panic. The room flooded with dim yellow light, but there was nothing there. Only the footprints, only the wet sheets, only the lingering scent of ice and lake water. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. By morning, the footprints had vanished. The sheets were dry. Everything looked normal, but I knew it wasn't. I packed a bag and left town that day. I didn't tell anyone what happened. I didn't go back to the lake. I didn't even drive near it. But sometimes, even now, I hear it. The tapping, software slow, waiting. And every winter when the lakes freeze over, I wonder, did I let something out? Or did something follow me home? Story number 6. The Masked Man Who Kept Knocking. The first knock came at 3:12 a.m. A single hollow sound against the wooden door of our remote cabin. It woke me instantly, my body jolting upright as if my brain had been waiting for it. The fire had burned low, casting weak, flickering shadows along the walls. My girlfriend Sophie stirred beside me, groggy. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. She mumbled something unintelligible, rolling over. The knock didn't come again. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was the wind shifting the old wood. I tried to convince myself of that as I lay there in the silence, staring at the ceiling, waiting for something else to happen. But nothing did. The next night, at 3:12 a.m., it came again. One slow, deliberate knock. This time I knew I hadn't imagined it. My breath caught in my throat as I turned my head toward the door. The fire was still burning, its glow barely illuminating the front entrance. I strained my ears, listening for footsteps, for voices, for anything at all. Nothing. I slid out of bed carefully, my heartbeat hammering against my ribs. I moved toward the door, keeping my steps light. My hand hesitated on the doorknob. A single knock could be anything, an animal, a tree branch, even settling wood. But deep down, I knew. This was intentional. I held my breath and looked through the peephole. The porch light barely cut through the swirling snow, but I could make out a figure, tall, thin, wrapped in a long, heavy coat, and his face. He wore a mask, a smooth, featureless white mask with dark holes where the eyes should be. He stood completely still, facing the door, waiting. A chill crawled up my spine. My fingers tightened on the lock. I didn't move, didn't speak. I just stood there, heart thudding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then, as if he sensed me watching, he took a step back, slowly, deliberately, and then another. Without a word, without a sound, he turned and walked off into the woods, disappearing into the swirling snow. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Sophie was pissed when I told her in the morning. "Why the hell didn't you wake me up?" she demanded. "I don't know," I admitted. "I didn't want to scare you." She rubbed her arms, glancing at the door. "You think it was just some hiker, a drunk guy lost in the snow?" "No," I said. "He knew what he was doing." That night, we locked the door, bolted the windows, made sure the fire was big and bright. But at 3:12 a.m., the knock came again. Sophie shot upright. This time we both heard it, a slow, deliberate knock. I grabbed the fireplace poker, my pulse racing. Sophie reached for her phone, but we had no signal this far up in the mountains. I motioned for her to stay put as I crept toward the door. I peered through the peephole. He was there, standing closer this time. The mask was tilted slightly, as if he was listening. The fire crackled behind me, filling the silence. My breath fogged against the cold glass of the peephole, and then he raised his hand. He didn't knock this time. He just pressed his fingers against the door. The air in the room grew thick. He knows I'm watching. I felt something cold slither down my spine, and then very slowly his fingers curled into a fist, and he knocked, once, twice, 3 times. I stumbled back, my chest tightening. I turned to Sophie, my voice barely a whisper. "He's playing with us." She grabbed my arm. "We need to leave." I nodded, reaching for my keys. We shoved our boots on, grabbed our coats, moving fast. But the moment I unlocked the back door, a wave of freezing air rushed in, and the knocking started again. Louder, harder, faster. It wasn't a single knock anymore. It was pounding. The whole door shook. Sophie screamed. I grabbed her hand, yanking her toward the back porch. But as soon as we stepped outside, I froze. Footprints, hundreds of them, leading from the woods, circling the cabin over and over again, layer upon layer. The snow was trampled down, uneven, like he had been walking in circles all night. Sophie choked on a breath. "How long has he been out here?" I didn't want to know. We sprinted to the car, throwing the doors open. I fumbled with the keys, hands shaking so badly I could barely fit them into the ignition. The engine sputtered, coughed, and died. Sophie was crying now, covering her mouth with both hands. Then from the front porch we heard the door creak open. Neither of us looked. We couldn't. The snow crunched. Slow, careful footsteps approaching the car. The passenger door handle jiggled. Sophie let out a strangled gasp, pressing herself against the seat. I turned the key again, muttering under my breath, begging the car to start. The handle jiggled again. Then he knocked. 3 times. On the car window. I didn't want to look. I knew what I would see. The mask. The blank, hollow eyes. Watching. Then the engine roared to life. I slammed my foot on the gas, the tires skidding against the ice. I didn't care if we slid, didn't care if we crashed. I just needed to get away. As we tore down the snow-covered road, Sophie finally looked back. Her face turned pale. "He's not moving." I gripped the wheel, my knuckles white. "What do you mean?" "He's just standing there." Her voice wavered, like he's waiting. The car skidded around a bend, and we lost sight of the cabin. I didn't stop driving until we hit the main road, where the signal returned, and we called the police. They didn't find him. They found the footprints, the ones circling the cabin over and over for hours, but there were no tire tracks leading to the property, no signs of anyone walking in from the road. It was like he had appeared out of nowhere. We never went back. We sold the cabin, we tried to forget, but last night in our apartment, hundreds of miles away from that place, there was a knock, at exactly 3:12 a.m. Story number 7. The Woman in the Wedding Dress. The first time I saw her, I thought she was just another trick of the snow. The storm had rolled in fast, thick flakes swallowing the road, turning the world into a blur of white. My girlfriend, Lisa, was gripping the wheel, her knuckles pale. We had planned a romantic getaway, a quiet weekend in a cabin tucked deep in the mountains. But now the road was nearly invisible, and we hadn't seen another car for miles. Then, out of nowhere, she appeared in the headlights. A woman, standing in the middle of the road. Lisa slammed the brakes, and the tires skidded over the ice, the car jerking violently before coming to a stop just feet away from her. My breath caught in my throat. She wasn't moving, just standing there barely illuminated by the headlights. She was wearing a wedding dress, not the crisp white of a new bride. No, this dress was old, tattered, filthy, stained with something dark. Her veil was torn, clinging to her tangled black hair. And her face was wrong, too pale, lips cracked, eyes wide, empty, staring at nothing. Lisa's voice came out in a whisper. "Do you think she—" Before she could finish, the woman's head snapped toward us. Lisa gasped. My stomach twisted into knots. The woman took a step forward, then another. The sound of crunching snow filled the silence. Lisa's breathing was ragged. "Number no, we need to go." She threw the car into reverse, but the wheels spun uselessly in the ice. The woman kept coming. Her bare feet barely sank into the snow. Then she stopped, just a few feet from Lisa's window. Her lips parted, and then in a voice so soft it barely carried through the glass, she whispered, "Where is my groom?" Lisa screamed. The engine finally caught, and we tore backward onto the road, nearly fishtailing into a ditch. The woman didn't move, didn't flinch. She just stood there watching us as we sped away. We didn't stop until we reached the cabin. By the time we stumbled inside, slamming the door shut, locking it behind us, my heart was still pounding. Lisa was shaking. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, she broke the silence. "Did you see her feet?" I swallowed hard. Yeah. They hadn't been touching the ground. The storm raged on outside. Wind howled through the trees, rattling the windows. We kept the lights on, the fire burning bright, as if the warmth could keep her out. I kept telling myself she was just some lost woman, maybe a bride from the nearby town, some tragic story we'd hear about in the morning. But deep down I knew she wasn't human. That night, Lisa barely slept. She kept waking up, saying she felt something watching us. I tried to comfort her, but truthfully, I felt it too. Then, sometime after midnight, I heard it. The soft rustling of a wedding dress dragging over wood. My blood ran cold. It was coming from outside the cabin. Lisa's hand found mine under the blanket, squeezing so tightly it hurt. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then came the knocking, soft at first, then harder. Knock, knock, knock. Lisa whimpered. My pulse thundered in my ears. Then a whisper drifted through the door. "Please, where's my groom?" I reached for the bedside lamp, fumbling to turn it on. The second the light flooded the room, the knocking stopped. Silence. I forced myself to get up, heart hammering. I inched toward the door, pressing my eye to the peephole. The porch was empty, but the snow wasn't. A single trail of footprints led up to the door, but there were none leading away. I backed away, my skin crawling. Lisa sat up, her eyes wide. "She's still out there, isn't she?" I didn't answer. By morning, the footprints were gone. The snow outside was pristine, untouched, as if she had never been there at all. We packed up and left that afternoon. Neither of us spoke on the drive home, but I could tell Lisa was still shaken. Then, just as we were nearing the highway, she gasped. I followed her gaze and felt my stomach drop. The woman was standing at the edge of the forest, still in her wedding dress, still watching us. Lisa hit the gas, and we didn't stop until we were back in the city. We tried to move on, tried to forget. But every year, on February 14th, at exactly 3:12 a.m., we hear it. The soft rustling of fabric, the quiet whisper outside our door. Where is my groom? Story number 8. The Valentine's Day Stranger. The letter arrived on February 13th, slipped under my apartment door. At first I thought it was from a secret admirer, some harmless Valentine's Day gesture. The envelope was deep red, the paper smooth and expensive. My name was written in delicate cursive, but something about it felt off. The ink looked too fresh, as if someone had just finished writing it moments before I picked it up. Inside was a simple note. Meet me at the frozen lake, midnight. No name, no explanation. Just those 6 words. I should have ignored it. I should have thrown it away. But curiosity got the better of me. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe a friend trying to mess with me. Or maybe, just maybe, it was someone from my past, someone I had forgotten but who hadn't forgotten me. By the time the sun had set, the idea of going had burrowed deep into my mind. Against my better judgment, I grabbed my coat, wrapped a scarf around my neck, and stepped out into the freezing night. The lake was only a 15-minute walk from my apartment, a quiet stretch of ice surrounded by skeletal trees. It was nearly deserted when I arrived. Only a single street lamp flickered near the edge, casting long shadows across the snow. The wind howled through the branches, but aside from that, it was silent. Too silent. I checked my phone. 11:58 p.m. The ice reflected the dim glow of the lamp. It stretched out endlessly, smooth and untouched. No one else was here. Then, at exactly midnight, I heard it. Footsteps, crunching softly in the snow behind me. I turned quickly, my heart lurching. A figure stood at the edge of the trees, tall, motionless, watching me. They were wearing all black, long coat, dark gloves, a scarf wrapped around their face. But what unsettled me the most was the way they stood. Completely still, head slightly tilted like they were studying me. I swallowed hard. "Who are you?" My voice came out more uncertain than I wanted. The figure didn't respond. They just lifted a gloved hand and pointed toward the lake. A chill slithered down my spine. Something in me screamed, "Don't turn around," but my body betrayed me. Slowly, I turned my head toward the ice. There, standing on the frozen lake, was another figure. This one was different. This one was wearing my face. I staggered back, my breath catching in my throat. The person, the thing, on the ice was identical to me. Same height, same clothes, same terrified expression. It lifted its hand and waved. I stumbled backward, my pulse thundering. What the hell is this? The figure in the coat didn't move, didn't speak. They just watched. I turned back toward the lake, but the thing that looked like me was gone. The ice was empty. The silence pressed against my ears, thick and suffocating. A whisper broke it. "I knew you would come." I whipped around. The stranger was closer now. I hadn't heard them move. Their voice was smooth, eerily calm, familiar. My own voice. A wave of nausea rolled through me. "Who are you?" I choked out. The figure took another step forward. The dim light flickered, and for the first time I saw it. A glimpse of their face beneath the scarf. It was me, pale, hollow-eyed, lips twisted into something between a grin and a grimace. "Run," the stranger whispered. I didn't need to be told twice. I turned and bolted. The wind howled behind me, carrying voices I couldn't understand. The snow beneath my feet felt endless, stretching longer than it should have. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but I didn't stop. By the time I reached my apartment, I slammed the door behind me, gasping for breath. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the lock. I backed away, pressing myself against the wall, my chest rising and falling in frantic bursts. The silence in my apartment was deafening. Then, a knock, software deliberate. I forced myself to move, inching toward the peephole, my stomach twisting into knots. My breath hitched. There, standing on the other side of the door, was me. Not just a reflection, not a hallucination. Another me. Staring, smiling, and in their hand they held a red envelope. I stumbled back, my head spinning. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing it all to disappear. But when I opened them again, the door was wide open, and the stranger was inside. I don't remember what happened next. I don't remember how long I screamed, but when I woke up, I was lying in bed. Sunlight streamed through the window. The nightmare was over. Except there was a red envelope on my nightstand. Inside was a single note. See you next Valentine's Day. Story number 9. A dozen roses, a dozen graves. The roses arrived on my doorstep early in the morning on February 14th, bundled in black ribbon, their deep red petals almost too perfect. A single white card was tucked between them, the ink written in smooth, careful strokes. For you, my love. 12 roses for 12 perfect years. I stood there for a long moment, the cold air creeping under my skin. I hadn't been in a relationship for over a year. My last boyfriend, Daniel, had disappeared, vanished without a trace exactly 1 year ago today. My fingers trembled as I turned the card over, hoping for a name, anything to explain who had sent them. But there was nothing, just those words, 12 years. I counted back in my mind. I had been in relationships, sure, but none that lasted 12 years. Something about the message felt wrong, like it wasn't written for me at all. I brought the roses inside, setting them on my kitchen counter. They smelled strong, almost too strong, the scent filling the entire apartment. The more I stared at them, the more uneasy I felt. And then, as I turned away, I saw it. A single drop of blood sliding down one of the stems. I gasped, jerking back. My mind scrambled for an explanation. Maybe a thorn had pricked my finger. Maybe it was some kind of dye. But when I grabbed a paper towel to wipe it away, the red stain smeared, thick and dark, soaking into the fabric. My stomach twisted. This wasn't normal. I grabbed my phone, meaning to text my best friend Mia, but before I could, a notification popped up, a news alert. I tapped it with shaking fingers. 12 bodies found in the woods outside town. My breath caught. The words swam in my vision. 12, the same number as the roses. A cold, creeping dread settled over me. I skimmed the article, my pulse hammering. The bodies had been arranged in a perfect circle, each one holding a single red rose. The police had no leads, no suspects. The bodies were barely recognizable. The only clue was a single note found at the scene. For you, my love. 12 roses for 12 perfect years. I dropped my phone. My stomach turned violently, and I ran to the sink, gagging. My head spun. This wasn't a coincidence. Whoever sent those flowers, they knew. A loud knock at my door made me jump. I turned, my breath catching in my throat. My mind screamed, "Don't open it," but my body moved before I could stop myself. I peered through the peephole. A man stood on my porch, dressed in dark clothing, a hood pulled low over his face. I couldn't see his eyes, just the outline of his mouth. He was holding something. A 13th rose. I stumbled back, heart slamming against my ribs. The knocking came again, louder this time. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then from outside, a voice, software familiar. "You forgot me, didn't you?" A wave of nausea crashed over me. That voice. I knew it. I forced myself forward, pressing my ear against the door. "Daniel," I whispered. Silence. The air turned frigid. My skin prickled. Then a slow, deliberate scraping sound, like something sharp dragging against the wood. I clapped a hand over my mouth, choking down a sob. Another knock. "Let me in." I backed away, shaking my head, tears burning my eyes. This wasn't real. This wasn't happening. Then, from the other side of the door, a whisper. "You were supposed to be the 13th. The words hit me like ice water. My knees buckled. I scrambled for my phone, my fingers shaking so badly I could barely type. I dialed 911, ringing, then static. A sharp burst of noise like a distant scream, then silence. I pulled the phone away from my ear, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The call had ended. The signal was dead. Another knock. Harder this time. I stumbled backward, my foot knocking over the vase. The roses spilled across the floor, their petals scattering. The stems moved, twitching like something inside them was still alive. My chest tightened. I had to get out. Now I turned and bolted toward the back door. The handle was ice cold under my fingers. I yanked it open, stumbling into the snow, my breath fogging in the night air. The street was empty, silent. I ran. My boots crunched against the snow, my breath burning in my lungs. I didn't stop, didn't look back. But then, a shadow moved at the end of the street. I skidded to a stop, my pulse thundering. A figure stood beneath the streetlight, tall, still, waiting. In their hand, a single red rose. The wind howled around me. My body screamed at me to run, but I couldn't. My legs wouldn't move. The figure took a step forward. I took one back. They took another step. I turned and ran. I don't remember getting into my car. Don't remember how I got the keys into the ignition. All I remember is speeding through the icy streets, my hands shaking, my vision swimming with panic. By the time I reached Mia's house, I was sobbing. She pulled me inside, wrapping me in a blanket, her face twisted with concern. What happened? I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. I just thrust my phone toward her, the news article still open. She scanned it, her expression darkening. Then, slowly, she looked up at me. "That note, the one left at the crime scene," she said. "It's exactly the same as the one that came with your roses." I nodded. Mia swallowed. "Then how did the killer leave it before you got yours?" The room spun. I looked down at my hands, at the 13th rose still clutched between my fingers. And then, from outside, a knock. Story number 10. The thing that took my boyfriend's place. It happened on the coldest night of the year. The snowstorm had trapped us in the cabin, and the wind outside howled like a wounded animal. We had been here for 3 days already, cut off from the world, waiting for the roads to clear. The power had flickered twice, but the fireplace kept us warm. Then, around midnight, Ethan got up to get more firewood. "I won't be long," he said, pulling on his boots. I watched him disappear into the storm, his figure swallowed by the swirling snow. The wind slammed the door shut behind him, and just like that I was alone. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I checked my phone, but the signal was still dead. I told myself he was fine, that he had just gone around to the back where we kept extra logs, but as the clock crept toward 20 minutes, something in my gut twisted. I wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and went to the window. The porch light barely reached the tree line, but beyond that there was only darkness. The snow-covered ground was untouched, no footprints leading back to the cabin. A heavy knock rattled the door. I jumped. My breath hitched in my throat. Ethan. It had to be Ethan. I hurried to the door, yanking it open. He stood there, covered in snow, his face pale from the cold. But something was off. His stance was stiff, unnatural, like he was trying too hard to stand like a person. His breath didn't fog in the freezing air. "You were gone for a while," I said, my voice shaking. He smiled, but the expression didn't reach his eyes. "Got a little lost," he said. His voice sounded wrong, flat, like an echo of itself. I stepped aside to let him in. He walked past me, moving too slowly, as if testing the way his body worked. I tried to shake the feeling creeping up my spine. It was just the isolation getting to me. I told myself I was being paranoid. But then I noticed something, his boots. They were dry. I looked at the door, then back at him. Snow still clung to his jacket, but his boots, the ones he had just walked through a blizzard in, were completely dry. My throat tightened. "Ethan, are you okay?" He turned to me, tilting his head a fraction too far. "Of course," he said, smiling again. That wrong smile. "I'm just tired." The fire crackled behind me, filling the silence. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. "Come sit with me. By the fire. Not our fire. Not let's warm up. Come sit with me by the fire." Something about the way he said it, the slight hesitation, the careful choice of words, sent a bolt of fear through me. I forced a smile. "I'm going to grab some water first," I said, backing toward the kitchen. I kept my eyes on him as I moved. His head twitched slightly, as if adjusting, as if getting comfortable in its skin.
I turned the corner into the kitchen and pressed my back against the counter, trying to steady my breathing. I needed to think, needed to be rational. Then I saw them, boot prints. A trail of wet, heavy prints leading from the back door to the living room, leading inside. My breath stopped. The back door was still locked, had been locked all night. The only way Ethan could have come in was through the front. I swallowed the scream rising in my throat. Whoever, whatever, was in the living room. It wasn't Ethan. I forced myself to look back around the corner. He was sitting by the fire now, hands stretched out toward the flames. His fingers twitched slightly like he was testing them, like he wasn't used to them. I had to get out. Now.
I crept toward the front door, moving as silently as I could. My hands shook as I reached for the lock. Then, "Ella?" His voice came from right behind me. I froze. Slowly I turned my head. He was too close, his face inches from mine, his eyes. Ethan's eyes were wrong. The irises too dark, the pupils too large, like something wearing his skin but not quite fitting into it. My body locked up, every instinct screaming to run. His head tilted, a slow, mechanical movement. "Where are you going?" I forced my voice to stay calm. "Nowhere. Just needed some air." His smile widened, but the expression was stretched, too forced. "You don't need air," he said. And then, without blinking, he whispered, "You should sit with me by the fire." My body reacted before my mind did. I grabbed the closest object, a lamp, and smashed it into his face. He didn't scream, didn't stumble. He just twitched, his head snapping unnaturally to the side before slowly realigning. The light from the broken lamp flickered, casting long shadows against the walls. I didn't wait. I tore the door open and ran. The cold air hit me like a punch to the chest, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I didn't look back, didn't stop. The snow blurred beneath my feet as I sprinted toward the trees. Then I heard it, the cabin door creaking open and the sound of bare feet crunching in the snow. I ran harder. Branches tore at my skin, the icy wind burning my lungs. My legs screamed for me to stop, but I didn't. I couldn't. Then, ahead of me, footprints, leading toward the road, real footprints, wet, heavy, human. And then, a voice. "Ella." I stopped so fast I nearly collapsed. I turned, my breath frozen in my throat. Ethan stood at the edge of the tree line, his real eyes wide, his face twisted in confusion. His clothes were torn, his hands red from the cold. "Ella, what the hell?" he gasped. I got lost in the storm. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, because behind him, standing just at the edge of the cabin's porch, was the thing wearing his face, smiling, watching, waiting. Then, as the wind howled through the trees, it slowly stepped back into the cabin and shut the door. Story number 11. My Valentine is in the walls. The first time I heard the whispers, I thought it was the wind slipping through the cracks in the old apartment walls. It had been a brutal winter, the kind where the cold seeped into your bones no matter how many layers you wore. The heating barely worked, and the pipes groaned like something alive. I told myself that was all it was. Just the building settling, just the wind outside. But then, on February 1st, I woke up to the sound of breathing. It was faint but steady, not mine, not something mechanical, something else. I lay there in the dark, heart pounding, trying to convince myself I was imagining it. But the longer I listened, the more certain I became. The breathing wasn't coming from outside, it wasn't even coming from inside my room. It was coming from inside the walls. The next morning I called my landlord, told him there were noises, maybe an animal trapped in the walls. He barely listened, muttered something about old buildings making old sounds, and hung up. I tried to ignore it, but every night it got worse. The whispers started a week later. At first they were soft, unintelligible, just a faint rustling behind the drywall. But as the days passed, I started hearing words. "I see you. You're beautiful when you sleep. Soon." I stopped sleeping. Every night I sat up in bed, heart racing, waiting. The walls weren't thick. If it was a neighbor playing some cruel prank, I should have been able to hear them during the day. But the whispers only came at night. By February 10th, I had convinced myself I was losing my mind. Sleep deprivation, stress, paranoia, I blamed it all, until I found the hole. It was behind my dresser, a tiny crack in the drywall, barely noticeable. But when I leaned close, pressing my ear against it, I heard something breathing on the other side. My stomach twisted, my fingers trembled as I reached out, scraping at the crack, widening it just enough to see through. At first there was only darkness. Then an eye opened, watching me. I stumbled back, slamming into my bed. A scream caught in my throat. The eye didn't blink. It just stared, unblinking, like it had been waiting for me to notice. I scrambled for my phone, my hands shaking so hard I could barely type. I called the police, tried to explain through gasping breaths. By the time they arrived, the hole was gone. The wall was smooth, untouched. No cracks, no damage. They checked the apartment, found nothing. They left with pitying looks, probably convinced I was insane. That night the whispering returned. I knew you'd see me. They won't believe you. Don't worry, I'll come to you soon. I shoved a chair against the door, left every light on. Sleep wasn't an option. But as I sat there, my eyes burning from exhaustion, I noticed something new, a smell, faint, rotten, like something old, something decayed. It was coming from the walls. By February 13th, I knew I had to leave. I started packing, stuffing clothes into my suitcase, my breath coming fast and uneven. But as I reached for my phone, the whispering came again, not from the walls, from inside the room. Why are you leaving? Don't you love me? I spun around, my vision swimming. There was no one there, and yet the closet door creaked open. A shadow shifted inside. A figure, something stepped out. It was tall, too thin, its skin stretched too tight over its bones. Its face, oh God, its face was smiling, too wide. Its teeth were small and sharp, rows of them like a shark's. My breath caught. My body screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. It took a step closer, then another. I've been waiting for so long. The smell was overwhelming now, thick and wet, like old flowers left to rot. Its hands, long, thin fingers, tipped with nails too sharp to be human, reached toward me. You're my Valentine. I don't remember screaming. I don't remember running. But somehow I made it to the door. My hands fumbled with the lock, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I yanked it open and stumbled into the hallway. When I turned back, the room was empty. The lights flickered. The air was still. And the whisper came one last time from inside the walls. Next year, my love. I never went back. I moved cities, changed numbers, cut ties with everyone who knew where I had lived, but every Valentine's Day, no matter where I go, I still hear it, the whisper, software waiting. I'll find you again. If you made it this far, congratulations. You survived. For now. But tell me, have you ever experienced something truly terrifying? Share your horror stories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this chilling ride, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new nightmare. Also check out the videos appearing on your screen for more spine-tingling tales. Stay safe and sleep with the lights on.